Hi and hello, watch fans, and welcome to another edition of the Real Time Show with me, your friendly neighborhood jeweler, Aloma Joseph. Today, I'm very honored and proud to welcome back to the virtual studio Phil Toledano, Mr. Enthusiast, but maybe today he's more famous for Toledano and Chan. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you so much, man. What a greeting.
It is good to have you back on the show.
Very good to talk to you again.
I had a blast on our first one. Rob had a blast editing. Not. Our luck is that he couldn't join last minute because he had teeth pulled. But it's a good thing because you and I are very dangerous on the mic. He begged me to shut the fuck up during this episode. So I'm going to do my utter best to shut up half of the time. Before we commence, first of all, huge congrats to Alfred and you on the well-deserved success of your launch of the brand Toledano and Chan. I'm very blessed to have the B1 on my wrist.
What a surprise.
Not the carbon fiber copper infused, which we'll discuss later.
Yeah.
Because that was also an awesome success and a well-deserved success. Hammered at $24,000, if I recollect correctly.
Yeah.
So also amazing.
Shocking.
Well, actually, no, it's not shocking. It's well-deserved because you guys elevated. That auction was called an Important Watches, and it actually is. So I've actually been blown away by the piece because I've been following you on this journey for over 2 years. You've shown me drawings and sketches and ideas along the way, but I was scared it was a bit too thick, but well done. Kudos. Really, it's spectacular. I get crazy reactions from watch geezers and idiots and ignorant people, but it rocks the world. The lapis is fantastic because I have a very fond relationship with that semi-precious stone, which is something that actually doesn't exist in the world of jewelers. It's either precious or not. But my dad is a jewelry designer, and he actually started his career with turquoise and lapis because that was found both in Israel and Iran. Amazing. Biggest question I get, is it natural and untreated? I always say yes, but I'm bluffing when I say that.
It is natural untreated. And it is actually very interesting because what's happened is that we are used to seeing lapis. It's like our world has been shaped by a specific brand. So our world, in the context of lapis, our world view has been shaped by Rolex and Patek. And for the most part, Rolex in particular, always picked lapis with no blemishes, with no pyrite. And so when people see it, they presume that's how lapis is naturally. And then when they see our piece, they say, well, what our lapis? They go, well, what is that? And it's actually the reverse. You have to go through, when we were designing the watch, we looked at clean lapis, at like totally blue lapis, but it felt kind of boring because the lines of the watch are so brutal, so rigid, so austere. The design is austere, that you needed this kind of beautiful, organic, random pattern to be beautiful punctuation in a beautiful sentence. And actually someone commented, I thought this was such a beautiful comment. Someone said, it's like looking out the window at a starry sky. And I love that idea because after all, the head of the watch was kind of based on this idea of a brutalist window. So I love that metaphor that you're kind of looking up at a starry sky, and that's what that dial is.
So that means you really don't like me because mine looks like a muddy river. No.
I mean, funnily enough, I was looking at my dial and I was looking at a bunch of other pictures of other people's dials. So I was thinking, wow, everyone seems to have much nicer dials than me. It's funny because there's a pretty high rejection rate on lapis. Not only, I think we had to reject, we had 175 dials and we probably rejected about another 100. Not only for, because there were cracks or whatever, but because we just didn't like the way it looked.
And it's a very porous stone, isn't it? So it's very relatively brittle.
Yeah, it's very brittle. It's very brittle.
Yeah, so I have a beautiful version with actually in the goldish vein. So it's a very vivid blue. So well done. Do you know where they were sourced, or?
I have no clue.
There goes my question about sustainability. So let's skip that quickly.
Sorry. There's the place in Hong Kong, or the suppliers dial. So we say, okay, we'd like to get X number of this style, and then they get it for us.
Well, a lot of people don't know that you are very modest. It doesn't seem that way what you are. I've never met Alfred in person, haven't spoken and been following him ever since I knew you guys teamed up. Also seems like a very modest gentleman. You told me off record that you were really blown away by the fact that the 175 pieces sold out within 42 or 43 minutes. And my question is, why were you surprised?
It's funny, like, when you're a kid and you have a birthday party and you're sitting at home and like all the balloons are like tied to the chairs and they're sort of waving in the air conditioning, and you've got all the food on the table and the cake and everything. And the birthday party's at 3 and this is like 10 to 3. And you're thinking, is anyone going to ring the bell? Is anyone going to come to the birthday party? You don't really know. Right? So that's exactly how, because we were supposed to go live at 9, and then like 5 to 9, I was like, fuck it. I need to know if there's anyone outside the door waiting to ring the bell. I couldn't stand it. So I just said, okay, I'm going to, unlock the website. We're going to go live. And then I've got to say, man, it was incredibly emotional. I guess just to see the kind of sales coming in. And I just called up Alfred in Hong Kong. I was like, holy shit, are you watching this? He was like, oh my God, I'm watching this. Like, it was this crazy kind of ecstatic jubilation. I think when you make things, you believe in the thing you've made. But I'm well aware as an artist that when you make things, you're kind of, you construct a world of your own. You make a world of your own creation, and you live inside that world. So you don't really know for certain if other people will want to enjoy the world that you've made. So, I guess I didn't know for sure. I mean, I liked it. And a lot of people kept saying, oh, it's going to sell out. And then because so many people kept saying that, I thought, oh, okay, now I'm certainly doomed, which is probably the English side of me.
Well, you're doomed now, Phil, because you've always said, this is something in my head. It needs to come out. I'm an artist. Artists usually go by the flow, literally, and they'll see, don't plan too much ahead. You called this the B/1.
Yeah.
For our dear listeners that are maybe not that familiar with this watch or missed the hype, check out Toledano and Chan.com. So it's all words, no hyphens, no stripes, no nothing. And Chan is CHAN. Phil is formerly known as Mr. Enthusiast, which is his handle on Instagram. And Mr. is fully written, so Mr. Toledano. Or Enthusiast, sorry. What's next? Because you're doomed. You need to come with chapter 2. So can you tell us what is chapter 2 for you guys?
Well, we have kind of 3 ideas where we're kind of, I mean, the most like with art, the most exciting part of anything is always the creative part, the creation part, the part where it comes into contact with reality is in some ways the least exciting, because then you begin to realize how the things that you thought were okay are actually not okay for other people, or that there's things you can improve or that you didn't consider. But we have a couple of ideas we're ruminating on, and we're working very hard to make prototypes now. We're going to start seeing some prototypes hopefully in the next month or 2. And then we can make a decision, which is a super vague, like politician's answer that's not telling you anything. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. The carbon fiber copper thing is definitely an avenue we'd like to explore. Obviously, we won't do carbon fiber copper. There will be some other material mixed in there. But there are other ideas. There's one idea that's kind of really crazy that I'm very excited to see if that can work.
That's actually very interesting. Some people think this is crazy. So if you are saying the next thing is crazy, that's hyperbolic.
In some ways, it's funny because when we started off, we had 2 versions of this watch. We had the one that we released and another version that was a bit more unusual. And most people seem to prefer this lapis brush steel version. And I think that for us, we think we will definitely still make really sort of beautiful, quieter, sophisticated watches, but you also want to make the point of this watch is kind of about form, about materials, about sculpture. So we want to really explore that idea a lot. So this watch that we've released may be one of the most restrained versions of this watch.
I think you've had amazing press coverage, and well-deserved, and rightfully so. So our dear listeners that want to grasp the basics, why Phil is the king of brutalist architecture of the watchmaking industry, and why he likes oddball watches and odd-shaped watches, just check his Instagram, read some articles. I want to dig deeper. Why no name on the dial?
Well, it's very interesting, actually. We actually thought about names on the dial, and we had another name for the brand initially. I think we were totally misguided, but we had this idea of calling the brand Lin, because I think it was Hungarian for line, and Marcel Breuer is Hungarian, but as it turns out, I'm not sure that is actually Hungarian for line, because brutalist was all about straight lines, brutalism, and we put it on the dial, and we're like, there's something beautiful about celebrating the materials. Do you know what I mean? Like when you have the thing about a lot of stone dial watches, all the stone dial watches for the most part that we see, like if you think of like a Rolex Daytona, there's a meteorite dial, for instance. There are sub-dials, there are, logos, there are indices. There's so much stuff on there. You can't really see, like it's a soup saw of meteorite in the end. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I love the fact that you guys underlined your true modesty of both your characters. And it also reflects in the fact that you wrote your brand names, which are both your surnames, in smaller case. So you didn't capitalize the first letter of your names. Why is that?
That disturbs the Dutchman in you. I guess it's a design choice. I find that like uppercase, just all lowercase is a much more beautiful thing to look at from a design point of view, I think, than having an uppercase T and C. So that's the only reason. But funnily enough, I'm sort of vaguely friendly with Fabrizio from Bulgari, the master behind the Octo Finissimo. And he messaged me the other day, a couple of days ago, said, I'm in town, you should come up to the Bulgari shop. So I went up, and it was lovely to see him, and I showed him the watch, and he was very complimentary. But it was so interesting to talk to someone who really knows what they're doing with watches, because I do not, Alfred does, and he was like, "You have to put something on the dial."
He said that?
Yeah. He said you have to put like some kind of letter or something on the dial. I was like, really? Do we have to? And it's interesting because, I understand it from a branding perspective, from building a brand. Like you want people to see that whatever that, like, say it's T and C, but it wouldn't be. But let's say that was on the dial. Then people would see, okay, it's a T and C watch, whatever it is. But then I also wonder if that's just force of habit because he's been in the business for so long, and maybe you don't have to do that. I don't know.
Well, he has a rare combination of true genius of design. He's a true designer, hard worker, because he says that. The perfection comes from hard work, because I have also the honor to hang out with him. And we actually interviewed him, I believe, twice on this show. But he also understands that without the commerce, the artistry within that vessel can't work. And Bulgari obviously is mythical because Genta elevated that art by designing the Bulgari with twice the logo on the bezel, whereas it's already on the dial. I do actually agree with him that TNC, not terms and conditions, but Toledano and Chan, should maybe do something on your next ones, because I know you guys were modest and you said this is art, it has to come out. We'll see what life it will have. But since you guys are continuing, you are now a brand. You're not a one-day fly or a one artistic project. So I kind of agree with Fabrizio.
It was a real honor to talk to him. He just sort of spent time listening to his opinion about the watch and like the possibilities of where we could go and how we could make it better and all this. It was such a delight. So I think he and you are, I think it's an interesting point, and it's something Alfred and I are now talking about. But the trick is to figure out what would go on there that would be that would work, I guess.
and I'm quite sure you guys will figure it out. I've received many questions. We heard of this Toledano chap. Who is Alfred Chan?
Alfred is the genius behind this thing. Alfred is a watch designer. I am just, a collector, an artist who, I have a lot of ideas, but Alfred has the skill and the ability to make his ideas and my ideas real. So he's a guy, we've never actually met in person. This has been an entirely internet relationship, which is kind of crazy.
Are you sure you didn't get catfished?
Yeah, I know. Well, all my friends here are like, yeah, Alfred doesn't exist. He's an AI creation you've invented. So he met because I think as you know, I have this clothing brand called Viva Bastardo. So he had bought some Viva Bastardo stuff, and I think he contacted me because of that. And we started talking, and then I found out he was a watch designer, and then we just started talking about watches and the kind of watches we'd like to make and brutalist architecture. And then we started sending pictures back and forth of inspiration. And then somehow, I've said this before, but I wasn't looking for a watch designer to make a watch brand. I wasn't looking to make a watch brand to make money. The thing about being an artist, I guess, is that when I'm interested in a field, when I get in, I have to make something within that space, if that makes any sense. So I'm super into watches. So I'm driven to make a thing. I love watches so much. I want to make one of my own, if that makes sense. And Alfred, we just kind of hit it off, man. We just connected. He's, really smart, has such great ideas. I mean, all of the kind of genius details behind the case, the hands, the way the hands kind of, like the idea of continuous concept design, like the idea that the case shape and the way the bracelet works and the way the hands work all interrelate. That he executed that beautifully.
I discovered him on Instagram because of you. I think you forced him to go more hardcore or come out of the shadows. Actually,
he's definitely not like a showy bastard the way I am.
So he actually existed. This is not an AI generated profile. You can find him on Instagram at Alfred KK Chan, CHAN. So no 3 Ks in there. So make sure not to make that typo. I know why you guys hit it off because he has a wonderful Alain Silberstein, and you can find that at one of his great family man and he's a petrol head as well. So I told him, can you say what other brands he has worked for?
Honestly, I'm not sure. No, that sounds crazy.
But is that his core business? Is he?
Yeah. He freelances for watch friends. I mean, I know he's worked for a bunch. I think I think maybe it says it on the bio on the website. I'm not sure. I have to. I'm weirdly vague about it. I have to. I'm sure I asked him, and I'm sure he's told me. But I'm at this advanced age where I can't remember. I remember nothing of any. I only remember things that are totally unimportant. Like for instance, if you did something really embarrassing and I witnessed it, I would remember that for 20 years, and I would remind you on a regular basis.
Of course, it's all about storytelling. So this is homework for our dear listeners that are in the TRTS community. Go find out what brands he does design for, and let's make this into a guessing game. If you're not in the community, join us on WhatsApp. Just DM us, send us an email, and we'll add you to this bunch of lunatics, real bastardos. Going from Toledano and Chan, I thought, he maybe scratched that itch with your own personal collecting of crazy pieces. But I love your journey, and it seems you went on steroids because going from a sidestep to a IWC Da Vinci, but the OG Kult Klaus Platinum Rattrapante, to OG Gerald Genta, his own brand. I think you have a Perpetua or something. And then what the F was that Rolex? What was it, Zerograph or what? I've never seen that watch. Tell us about that watch, or whatever watch you want to discuss, by the way.
I mean, just on a kind of collecting overview thing, the last year or so, I had a major kind of massive reshuffle. So I had a bunch of like military dive watches, the IWC Bund, the Ocean Bund, the all that stuff. And I sold all that stuff because I realized actually that I had bought, I like those watches, but they just it's when I sell watches, it's not that I don't think they're beautiful or interesting. They're just not necessarily as interesting to me as they used to be. So I sold all that stuff. And I just reoriented to a bunch of like interesting 90s things like Daniel Roth and Agenda, of course. But the Rolex Xerograph, to answer your question, man. Okay, so that day actually was kind of like the most amazing, crazy, best day I've had in recent memory. And given that my memory's shit, I could have had other amazing days. I just can't remember, but it was an incredible day. So the Rolex Xerograph is the first Rolex Oyster chronograph they ever made. And the information on them is quite sketchy, or just vague rather. So they made the Xerograph and the Centigraph. It's the first Rolex Oyster chronograph. It's the first Rolex to have a rotating bezel. It's the first Rolex to have an in-house movement. And there's been like 5 or so. And the theory is that they were kind of prototypes that were sent out to dealers or something, and they're all kind of within a narrow band of serial numbers. So this watch, I've always wanted this watch. I saw they were going for like $300,000-$400,000, and I was when they did show up at auction, and I always loved it. I just thought it was such a cool thing, and it was such an interesting piece of history. And I just always thought there's not a chance that I will ever own one. There are just watches like that. Like as watch nerds, we all have watches we would love to own, but feel like we will never own. So, I'm at Sotheby's. The carbon fiber Toledano Chan watch goes for this crazy number, which I never thought it would. And I'm looking through the catalog. I'm like, holy shit, the Xerograph. I had totally forgotten it was in there, because they kind of just, they were very focused. It was a Sylvester Stallone collection auction. So I think all the attention went to Stallone's pieces. He sold that crazy Patek. So the Xerograph was kind of buried. And it was in the afternoon, so everyone was there in the morning, and then so I went out to lunch with some other friends, and I was watching the Xerograph, and then all of a sudden, a friend of mine goes, "Hey, the lot was passed," and "What do you mean the Xerograph was passed?" I said, "No one bid on it." So I'm like, "Holy shit!" So I get in touch with the auction house with Sotheby's. They run it through the auction again, and I put in a bid, and I'm on the phone waiting for someone to be like, oh, hang on, it's a fucking Xerograph. I should bid on that. But no one does. And so I get this crazy watch, and it's an amazing thing, man. I think the story is it was a one owner watch. It belonged to some family in Northern California. The son of the owner called up, was like, I had this thing that my dad had. He's been, he's been living in a trailer or something. I don't know the details. And it's like 2 serials off from another zero, between 2 other Xerographs. So I have this thing, man. And look, I mean, the funny thing is, like, I have won some amazing watches at auction being the only bidder. It's weird. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes, like, sometimes people just aren't paying attention. Sometimes things fall through the cracks. And I guess that's what happened with this watch.
Amazing. Congrats on obtaining that.
Thank you.
Amazing. I've actually found out, because you hang out so much with Mike Nouveau. So as he makes good videos, I met him last year in Geneva. He also shot me for his fun TikToks. I love what he does, and I actually love his new platform. So this is a shout out to Mike. I forgot the name of his app. I will look it up.
Pushes, yeah.
It's actually it's like pushing drugs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as we all know, as collectors, watches are basically crack.
They are.
So you never get enough of them. We always need more of them.
You just proved how you obtained the Xerograph. Like a crackhead, you needed a shot. So,
I mean, yeah, I still cannot believe I have that thing. And so many people email me like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you have that watch." It's amazing, man.
So tell me, did the fact that you've created you've made amazing iterations to watches. I refer to the King Nerd double Rolex set. I'm referring to the Tudor P01 that you've aged. the fake Panerai. But this, Phil, did it scratch an itch? And you're like, okay, I've done this, or did it fuel your passion even more, and you're on a high?
Wow. The latter. Look, it makes me. I would. The dream for the Toledano Chan brand is to make a brand that lasts. To make something like it wouldn't. I would be deeply unhappy if we made this watch and then we didn't kind of. I would like it to become like a classic, basically. And I was thinking about this when we were making it. Like, you think about so many of the kind of the real classics in watches are shape-based watches, right? The Midas obviously influenced this watch. The Crash, the Royal Oak, the Nautilus, like they're all shapes that have stuck because they're just so graphic and so timeless. So that's the dream for this watch, man, is to make a shape that sticks.
I want to use this as a segue to your other art making, which is you're a photographer originally.
Yes.
You were the first artist that I said, hey, he understands the true power of AI for creativity. You were the first that saw it as a tool, meaning a painter has a pencil, brush, canvas, and paint. A photographer has a camera. Sculpture needs a brittle and a hammer. Besides that, your art resonated with me. I loved that historical surrealism you did in Another America.
Yes.
Okay, I love that you played with stills and you made GIFs out of them. So So an example, if you haven't seen it, he has in the 50s elegant American woman standing probably somewhere on Fifth Avenue, wherever, and there are either clouds or smoke coming from her hair. So it's slowly like a cloud moving. I love that series you did in post-war London, I believe.
Well, first of all, thank you for what you just said about, how I use AI. I mean, I'll tell you the point of Another America is this, that we are, I think, at a very interesting point in history where, because AI is such a powerful tool, it's so easy to generate utterly convincing images that look like photographs. We are in a period now where, going forward, everything is true and nothing is true, right? Because AI can make it totally convincing visual evidence for any lie, any conspiracy theory you can imagine. Now you can have visual evidence to back that up. So I think that's what Another America is about. It's about, I thought, why not create reinvent a period in history, New York City in the 40s and 50s. And then I had this friend of mine who is a writer for The New Yorker, John Kenny, write these stories to accompany these images. So it's an invented history. And that, for me, is the real sweet spot. The thing that I find very interesting about AI is inventing history. Because I think, look, history has always been, I know that people say, well, history is written by the winners, et cetera, et cetera. And it's true, history but now history is infinitely elastic because we can recreate it so convincingly, or reinvent it.
A lot of people say, oh, AI is a tool, makes you 40% more efficient, or you can jam out a text, song, picture, and now videos within seconds or minutes. You have spent not hours, but I believe days on end creating one. Am I correct?
Look, I mean, the thing about AI, like anything else, I mean, if you go back to the 1850s when photography was emerging, there was an incredible backlash against photography from painters in particular, but a lot of art critics at the time said, look, it's not real art because a machine is taking the image. It's not real art because it happens so quickly, like it's a blink of an eye, right? But it's not about and I've had, certainly there's a lot of people who are against AI, but I think that it's just small-minded, and also it's just, at every technological innovation, particularly in photography, there's always a group of people who are very upset about it. And then, like when there was a transition from black and white to color, people were mad. When there was Photoshop, people were mad. When it went from film to digital, people were mad. There's always people who are upset. But then ultimately, for the most part, most of those people who are upset in 2 or 3 years' time will be using AI. So it's interesting to see. I mean, I really view my job as an artist. The point of me as an artist is to be curious and to look at everything, to consider every tool, to consider every possibility. That's my job. I don't know. I just went down some strange wormhole.
You actually took it exactly where I wanted, and I'm going to go deeper. Are you an AI doomer or boomer? For those that maybe don't know these terms, do you think that AI will kill us or will elevate us to a almost godlike species, and will we all survive?
Well, speaking as a fully evolved godlike specimen myself, I don't know. You know what, man? I guess I'm a boomer in the sense that I think that the possibilities for advance in medicine in particular are extraordinary. I think that there are so many things that we can't even think about that will happen. I mean, look, I think in some ways it's not dissimilar to like the Industrial Revolution or, for instance, the printing press. Like when Gutenberg showed up with his printing press, all those monks who had sort of a lock on, writing, illustrating manuscripts, I'm sure they were very upset. And I'm sure when Gutenberg came along, no one thought about the dissemination of the Bible or the Little Red Book or whatever it happens to be. Like, we can't possibly imagine what the technology will bring, I think. And I also wonder if all our worry. Do you remember Y2K?
Of course.
Remember the terror over the Y2K bug? Like all the computers were going to seize the night of 1999. It was going to be apocalypse. Banking wouldn't work. Like all this stuff. Remember all that? And it was a nothing. Like it was a nothing burger.
But do you believe that we'll reach AGI?
Oh, for sure, man. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the speed of things. I wouldn't be surprised if we already have AGI.
Okay. So you probably know the paperclip metaphor that you need to use all resources to just keep on making paperclips to fill the whole universe.
Wait, what?
I'll send you the article. Okay. Let's bring it one step back though. Is AI or will AGI be creative?
Oh, I'm sure it will be, man. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or two, AI will be coming up with better ideas than I will be. Who knows? I mean, look, I'm kind of gloriously naive about it. And I know that there are certainly reasons to be worried about it. There are certainly reasons to be upset about AI in the context of image generation. I know that people are worried about copyright or upset about it, et cetera, et cetera. But I sort of feel like it's here, it's advancing. We can try and restrain ourselves, but there's always going to be governments or people who want to explore it to its fullest. I guess I was watching this comedian on Instagram, and he was saying, and it's such an obvious thing to say, but it makes so much sense. Like, why worry about the things that haven't happened yet? Because you can't affect them, you can't control them. There's nothing we can do about it. As far as I know, all I know about AI right now is that it's an incredible creative tool for me personally. All the rest of it, I have no idea what it's going to be. I was reading this article about how people are using AI to try and speak to whales and dolphins. And I thought, wow, how amazing would that be? Like, what if it turns out the whales and dolphins are having full conversations for centuries and we've just been, like we could actually have a real conversation with a dolphin? Is that possible? Is it true? How amazing would that be?
I totally believe that they do communicate with each other and they tried with us and we will. So, yeah, I believe that.
No, we do for sure. The question is, how sophisticated is it? What kind of conversation? Are they just saying, danger? Or are they saying, hey?
I bet they'll understand the humor of you saying geezer all the time.
Yeah, are they say, a dolphin saying, hey, I'm feeling kind of peckish. Do you any chance of getting something to eat? And the other guy's like, no, I want to have a nap right now. Like, I don't know what the conversations are, but it'd be great to know what they are and to be able to speak to them.
That would be amazing. Did you guys use AI designing the B1 or any other watch at Toledano and Chen?
No. Although, having said that, I mean, it's never even occurred to us. But
why are you laughing? You use it for your art. Your watch is also a piece of art.
I guess it never occurred to me to do that. Also, look, Alfred is such a genius designer. Yeah, I don't know. Why not? I guess.
Okay, now let's go from philosophical, intellectual to just being tacky and street-y. I saw your video with Mike going to, I don't know, you went to the Diamond District, I think, to test your freaking Patek and you thought it was gold plated. I wanted to call you. I said, you schmuck.
No, not the watch. The
no, the bracelet, I know.
It was not a Patek bracelet.
No, but you guys killed me. It was so funny, but it was nice to see that. We actually still test the gold here in our boutique in Amsterdam the same way.
It was a bracelet I had for a while, and I felt like it could be gold maybe, but there were no hallmarks on the watch, so I wasn't sure. And I put it, you know how like every watch nerd relates to this. If you're a vintage watch collector, you have a bunch. I'm sure, like if you collect vintage watches, you've got like 300 fucking bracelets that you've bought on eBay over the last 10 years just sitting somewhere, right? And you keep buying more and you never use any of those. But every now and then, one of those bracelets magically fits the watch you bought and makes it look amazing. And that's what happened with that Patek.
So what's your outlook on the market today, the watch market? You hear all around that it's cooling rapidly. It started in January. Well, what's your feeling? What's your vibe? What do you see? What do you feel here?
Sure, man. I mean, there certainly seem to be a lot more bargains. I mean, look, I think it's great because it means you can buy things, like I don't know if the zero graph to me was an anomaly, but you can buy things that you liked that are now a lot cheaper. And I've sort of been through this in the car market, in the vintage car world, where there was this kind of fevered pitch and then it kind of collapsed and then it came back. So I'm sure everything will come back at some point. But as a collector, I just think it's a good opportunity to buy things you love. If you've been buying watches to make money on, and you're not a dealer, or even if you're a dealer, I imagine it's much more daunting. But if you just buy watches because you love them and you want to collect them, then it's a good opportunity, I think.
What new designs? We did that the last time, so I want to do it again. What new watches, designs, brands are on your radar? What spoke to you? What do you think is cool? What's not cool?
Oh God, it's so hard to say, man, because I'm so deeply into kind of vintage. You know what I will say, man? I will say that I'm slightly disappointed so far at the offerings from LV with Genta. I feel like they kind of turn the volume down a little bit too much. Do you know what I mean? Like the thing for me with Genta in the 90s is he was so crazy and he was so curious. He was so interested in different materials. And I understand they want to revive and they want to make it a commercial success. And maybe I also understand that I guess people aren't quite as far out as I am. But I feel like I wish they were a little bit more, I don't know, surprising. But the people I think are doing amazing things is Cartier, Chanel, Hermes, all the fashion brands, I think in some ways are the most interesting and the most audacious in terms of paste design, what they're doing with, gemstones, all that stuff like that. What was that? Did you see that Cartier? It was like a round kind of zebra-y gemstone watch.
Yes, I love it. I love gem.
Yeah.
Watches. Cartier always has been creative, still is. They're doing a lot of retro stuff now, but that's their spiel. Yeah, it's spot on. And I mean, you hanging out with Mike is not a good thing because he's Mr. Cartier.
He's always like bloody, it's like endless tank syndrome. Like I mean, the thing that's exciting for me about Cartier is just how audacious they were with shapes like the cloche, the asymétrique, the shake, the whatever, the crash. I mean, all that stuff. Like, how cool are those designs?
Regarding LV and GG, Jean Arnaud, if you're listening, Phil is available. Don't worry about it. He won't force you to do a collab with Toledano Chan. You can he'll ghost right for you.
It is interesting. Do you know what I mean? When I look at the Genta releases, I still think that, I don't know, maybe they are reacting to, maybe they feel, I would imagine they probably have a better sense of the market than I do, because I'm like out on the outskirts. I'm a niche person. And maybe, what they're doing is the right thing. I'd be curious to know what other people think of that. What was that one that looked like a hedgehog that they just released?
It's the I forgot the name of that sea urchin. Is it called the urchin?
Because I thought the bezel idea was quite interesting, but then I was really let down by the dials in the hands. I just felt like
I kinda hoped or still hope that Jean, and I think he's capable and passionate and respectful enough to do new GG watches, so Gerald Genta branded watches that are contemporary as if Mr. Genta was still alive. Do you catch my drift? And is that something you would have wanted to see?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the thing I really admire about Genta as an artist, this is what I see. This is the story I made up in my head about all that stuff he made in the 90s, is that he designed these mythological watches for decades from the 60s, Midas, I mean, all of it. Almost all the classics he designed, right? Pole Router, all of it. And I'm sure, because I worked in advertising, and this is how we worked in advertising. We always had ideas, and then clients would always shoot down. They would shoot down so many ideas, and you would keep a book of all your ideas, and you would keep trying to recycle, present to the next client, hoping that they would go for these ideas. So I feel like Genta must have had a book of just all these incredible ideas that were just too crazy for Patek or for for Audemars or whoever it was. So by the time it came for him to do his own watch, he was this explosion of ideas, and like he could finally do like carbon fiber with lapis and mother of pearl all in the same dial in 1994, which was crazy then. He could do all these amazing, tortoiseshell, whatever it was. He could do all this stuff because it was like this explosion of pent-up ideas that had always been rejected. That's the story in my head. I have no idea if it's true. And that's what I love about it, is you can sense this kind of wild curiosity and willingness to explore and experiment in the 90s. And I think, it would be amazing to see that now. I mean, the thing I see, going back to LV again, like the Tombour watch they came out with, it's exquisitely designed and finished, but it's so kind of like soporific. Like it's like chloroform. It's like horological chloroform. I just like crumple to the ground asleep when I see it, because I feel like it's it's beautiful and tasteful, but there's no like zing in it. There's no like, oh, this is kind of a new interesting idea. And it would be, I wonder what Genta would make of the new launches. I wonder what he'd think of that stuff.
So do I, but I had the honor to meet him once in Basel World. And from all the brands that I've spoken to that have worked with him, so I didn't speak to all the brands that he worked with, but those that I have spoken to, back in the day, all the designers, Jörg Hizek, Rodolfo, but also the infamous George Daniels, they came up with ideas, and they literally did a roadshow in Switzerland, going from HQ to HQ, pitching their ideas just to see. They would throw mud and see where it sticks, literally. Right. And that's what he did. So your assumption is right.
Oh, amazing, man. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is incredible, because it actually is, it's very much like when you're in advertising, every time you get a new client, there's always a couple of the old ideas for a bunch of other clients that didn't work, but might work for this client that you really love. So that's so interesting. They did a roadshow. They were just like throwing out like a, we have of ideas.
Yeah, he had these ideas in his head. He did that. And then when one stuck, so let's say the Nautilus stuck, then AP came and IWC came, and they all said, we want something like that.
Right. If you think about it, man, I guess you could make the same comparison with car designers. If you look at Giugiaro, I just forgot the other guy's name.
Zagato?
No, well, Zagato, yes, but Giugiaro and, I can't believe
Pininfarina?
Jeez, I can't believe I forgot. But like, you look at those designs, and so many of those designs are kind of the wedge-shaped designs that you see them in concepts, and you see them repeated in so many different cars in the 70s and 80s, where clearly like they had designs that they just kept working on and kept pitching to new manufacturers, new designers. And then maybe, as you say, Ford would say, oh, we love what you did for the so-and-so, do one like that for us. That's so interesting. That's how it worked. Then it makes perfect sense. He must have had a whole shitload of ideas that never saw light of day.
You and Alfred. Well, Alfred is today's Genta, and you've actually are becoming one. Have you been approached by brands to design watches for them?
No, certainly not. I mean,
would you?
Yeah, actually. I mean, if someone, I think it would, interesting, actually. I said yes, and then I think, well, but maybe we want to keep all our genius ideas for ourselves. Uh, you know what I mean?
Well, I think you're creative enough that you would either have ideas that doesn't fit the newly found Toledano Chan brand DNA, or you might have a crazy idea that, you say, hey, that brand has to make it.
Maybe. I mean, look, I'll tell you what did happen. 3 days after we launched, this guy contacted me. He's like, I'd like to invest in your company. And I said, well, we've only been in business for 3 days. I think we need a little more time to figure out like what's happening, which is interesting.
Would you accept investors?
I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not much of a businessman, so I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it would bring money, but then it would bring. I guess it depends on what those terms of investment were. Like, I think that the thing that Alfred and I really love so much is this. Like, we talk every morning, every evening, and we just talk about ideas. Like, before I got on the phone with you, I was a couple of minutes late because I was talking. We were talking about an idea and we were brainstorming, and it's so exhilarating. I know this from advertising because in advertising you always work in pairs. And it's very hard to find someone with whom you have an idea, then your partner has one that's slightly better, then you have one that's slightly better, then you keep topping each other, finessing, honing, sharpening the idea till it's a very sharp stick. And we have that, Alfred and I. And actually, to your point about unusual ideas, one of the things, like the carbon fiber for Sotheby's, when we were, I think we're going to be participating in the Philips auction, the Eye for Art, or what's that thing, when they ask brands to make watches to auction for the Swiss Institute to fund visual artists. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, but I forgot the name.
Yeah, me too. So, because I'm senile. But, so we look at that as an opportunity to express a different articulation of our brand. Like, okay, we have the B1, but we have to do this one-off for Philips and the Swiss Institute. What could that idea be? How can we keep adding to our language? So in a way, it's like a test place for prototypes and for ideas that, when a car company does like a crazy concept car, and then they won't produce it, but they'll produce versions of it, or things from that car will find themselves in the production cars.
Let's take the metaphor of Virgil Abloh.
Yeah.
LVMH wanted him. They did a little stint. They wanted him full time. They just bought Off-White.
Right.
Jean Arnault wants you to be the head of Gerald Genta.
Oh my God.
Hey, you don't have time. So he just buys Toledano and he has 2 amazing designers. Would you?
That's such an interesting question, man. I mean, I know myself, and I know, generally speaking, I don't function very well under the yoke. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I worked in advertising for 10 or 12 years, I always worked really well when it was a super small, like super creative agency. And then the bigger the agencies were, the less well I functioned, the less well I was understood, the more likely I was to get fired, because I'm an oddball. I'm an eccentric person. And I'm not very good at navigating like the corporate labyrinth, right? The Byzantine politics. I'm not very good at like knowing who to say what to. I just want to say what I think, and then either people like it, they don't like it, I'm happy to discuss it, whatever. But so I would worry that it would have to be like such specific circumstances, because LV is a massive, leviathan of a company, and I'd just be some little geezer running around in there. Whereas, Alfred and I, we're the kings of our own kingdom.
Pharrell is doing well. I mean, he rocked his Richard Mille and his Adidas shoes at his own fashion show. So I'm quite sure you can get away with it.
But Pharrell, yeah. But also, he's like the untouchable emperor. Like, he's almost, because he's his own. I think the trick with that is like someone like Virgil or Pharrell. I say Virgil like I'm friends with him or was friends, but I didn't know. But the thing about those girls are, they were their own brand that was incredibly powerful, that was really desired, right? Like, if Toledano and Chan became incredibly successful, incredibly powerful, then we would have that gives you protection. That gives you armor, right? Pharrell has armor. Like, LV knows that he could leave tomorrow and he would still be Pharrell and still be very powerful.
Talking of talking, everybody's asking us, is Phil going to make podcast episodes?
So I know you and I talked about it, and then I just vanished because I fell down the wormhole of like, the new, the AI art, the Toledano Chan work. I love a blather, as you know. I love blathering with you. I would still love to do it. I mean, I really honestly, I'm shocked that people are still interested in hearing me blather, but I would happily do it, man, because it was always the best part of that was having a conversation with someone I found super interesting who had done incredible things. I mean, that was a real privilege.
Hence, I'm sitting here, and hence we started the Real Time Show almost.
Right. I mean,
we've been on 2 years, so yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, you get to talk to really interesting people, right? People who've done things you'd like to do.
Exactly, and it's kinship, and actually friendships form, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very educational, both for me and the listeners.
Yeah.
Phil, I think both of us have done a great job. So a pat on both our shoulders. We're creeping towards the 1 hour. I think this is a beautiful, natural moment to say thank you.
Thank you.
Catch you on the flip side. And I would love to have Alfred come on with you.
He would love that, man. He would love that.
Or he should do one with Rob alone, and then we can do a polling to see which episode is better. I'm quite sure you and I will lose.
Yeah, probably. You should have him on. You should definitely have him on. I mean, it's tricky because it's like, the time difference, all the rest of it. For sure, it would be great.
No, I would love to. Thank you so much for carving out some time to sit down with me. Pleasure as always.
The pleasure was all mine.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. And thank you for you, dear listener, for taking the time to listen to this episode. Definitely make sure to find the previous episode with Phil if you have missed it, but be warned, it's chaos in the ear. You can find all our previous episodes on our official website, www.therealtime.show, and on Instagram via @therealtime.show. If you want to support the show, please subscribe, like, rate, and share it with your friends. If you have any questions, feedback, and or criticism, please do send us a message. You can also DM us if you want to join the TRTS community. You can reach David via Instagram at his handle, DAVAUCHER. Rob is at ROBNUDDS, and me you can find at Alon Ben Joseph. And if you prefer to send us an email, you can just add our first name to @therealtime.show, like our IG handle. Stay sane and keep on ticking.